Today we have several things that we would like to be able to share with you. Thanks, Katrina. Around the world of employment and getting jobs and some golden rules as far as that's concerned. And hopefully we'll be able to entertain you with a very real and true career story that's not one from someone who has won a Murray Halberg Award or something like that, but it is someone who has won a scholarship actually and had a very interesting career pathway, which I hope you will think about in relation to yourselves. So today there are three things we want to really achieve with you. We want to really encourage you to explore possibilities. We want to illustrate that with a story. We've got some golden rules, as I mentioned, about getting a job, and some things will be blindingly obvious and some will be a little bit of a surprise to you, I hope. I want to touch on very briefly at the end about skill shortages, simply because if you want to be scientific about following a career path, there are some really smart decisions that you can make. So here we are. Thanks, Katrina. Preparing for the world of work. Now, as far as work choice is concerned, the work choice is really about bridging the gap between school, if you like, and business. And so as you sit here today, trying to dream up what it is that you might be doing in the future, it's probably pretty difficult to understand what the hell the jobs are about. So what work choice was set up to do was kind of make those jobs come to life for you. And it dovetails beautifully in with Gateway. It perfectly fits in with the expos that you've been doing as well. And then what work choice does for those of you that are able to take part in the day, it means that you'll go into organisations and you find out really about what the jobs are about. So it's a great way of getting inside a business and checking it out. Now last year we had some schools from South Auckland that are really low decile schools, and we were, we live in a very interesting world in business because you kind of think that everyone's the same. And I was surprised in some ways to hear that some of the kids there had, and maybe it could be the same here too, they'd never been into an office. Some of those kids had never been into Queen Street, ever, and they just live in South Auckland, and some had never been in an elevator. So, boy, did we have to do a little bit of a, okay, let's frame this day so well that everyone understands what it's all about. And I'm pleased to say that I think that kids went away that day, young students, with some really neat ideas about things they could consider as possibilities. So to carry on though, one of the things I thought you might be interested in was a survey we ran last year to 229 people, and the question was simply, what career advice would you give your 18-year-old self? And the people that we were asking were not of your demographic fit. They weren't school students. They were grown-ups or adults or, parents, various people out in the workforce. Thanks, Katrina. And we were pretty surprised. And the reason why I'm mentioning this to you today is because I sometimes think the very people that influence you often are your parents, and that's really great. We think if they're involved, and you would probably feel that too, that's terrific if they're taking an interest. But sometimes they themselves, actually when they stopped and had to think about it, would have changed the advice they gave themselves. So I just thought you might be interested to know that. The first one, as you said, is that 82% of people had no idea what their career pathway was going to be when they left school. That's a huge number. And it's not surprising because, it's a very big world that you're entering into, and you've got to grow up pretty quickly when it happens. And 33% have changed their careers significantly, more than 3 times, in their working life. So what that means is they started out doing this, then they went to do that, and then they completely tried something entirely different. So for goodness sake, please don't be frightened. If you set yourself out on a pathway and it doesn't feel like it's right for you, then that doesn't matter. You can actually change your mind. You are allowed to. According to the pundits overseas, they would say that you'll probably change your mind dramatically 5 times at least in your career. So the first step is probably the most nerve-wracking, and we wish you well on that journey over this year and next year. But don't be afraid if you make a mistake, because it's actually okay. The statistics are really interesting. 50% said that they would have researched their options more extensively. And this is the most wonderful opportunity that you have now, I believe, this year, Year 12 and Year 13, to kind of get into the nitty-gritty and make the most of it. If you want to really find out about stuff, it's there for the taking. If you're not interested, and if you're sitting in the auditorium here today kind of going, oh, when's she going to finish, then maybe you might not find the journey quite so exciting. But believe me, there's a lot of information and there are a lot of people that want to help you. And probably what I should say at the moment too is that employers are actually quite frightened of you. they are actually very scared of you and your capability, because sometimes, in fact in many instances, your IT knowledge is far more extensive than most of the knowledge in many organisations inside New Zealand, particularly the business owners. So when you walk in the doors with your fundamentally brilliant brains around Excel and how to download videos and load them up here and Facebook and do comms and all the things that you do every single day, they actually get quite freaked out. So I just think you should be aware of that and tuck that into the back of your mind. People are frightened of your wonderful, extraordinary talent. So good to know, I think.